From a trusted aide who flipped on his own president to save himself, to a cabinet member who went rogue and secretly ran a weapons deal behind the president's back, to the man personally hired to protect a president who ended up being the star witness that destroyed him. These are the times U.S. presidents were betrayed by their own people. And spoiler, the knives didn't come from enemies, foreign spies, or political opponents. They came from the people sitting closest at the table, the people who shook their hand every morning, the people who swore an oath to protect them, the people they actually trusted. But first, let's talk about the most devastating betrayal in American presidential history, and the one that literally ended with a bullet. Abraham Lincoln was the president who saved the Union. He survived 4 brutal years of the bloodiest war in American history. He held a broken nation together with nothing but willpower, words, and sheer refusal to quit. Over 600,000 Americans had died, cities had burned, families had been torn apart, and through all of it, Lincoln never flinched, never quit, and never stopped believing America would survive. The war was finally over. The Union had won. And on the evening of April 14th, 1865, just 5 days after the Confederacy surrendered, Lincoln decided to finally exhale. He went to watch a play at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. He deserved one quiet night. He had earned it. The man who shot him wasn't a foreign enemy. He wasn't a Confederate soldier still fighting the lost cause. He was John Wilkes Booth, a famous American actor so well known that the staff at Ford's Theater recognized him on sight. Booth had performed there so many times he knew every corridor, every entrance, every blind spot in the building. Nobody questioned him. Nobody stopped him. He walked straight in like he owned the place, because in a way, everybody there already trusted him. And Lincoln's own bodyguard? He had abandoned his post to grab a drink at a nearby saloon. The most powerful man in America, the man who had just won the Civil War, was left completely alone in that theater box, betrayed not just by one assassin with a pistol, but by an entire system of people who got comfortable, got careless, and simply stopped paying attention at the worst possible moment. Speaking of people who were trusted completely and betrayed absolutely, the next story doesn't involve a theater or an assassin. It involves a courtroom, a tape recorder, and a lawyer who decided saving his own skin was more important than saving his president. In 1972, Richard Nixon had a problem. Actually, he had several problems, but his biggest one had a name: John Dean. Dean was Nixon's White House counsel, his personal lawyer, the man whose entire job was to protect the president legally and professionally. Nixon trusted Dean completely. He brought him into every conversation, every strategy session, every backroom decision. Dean knew everything. And that was exactly the problem. When the Watergate scandal exploded and federal investigators started closing in, Dean didn't go down with the ship. He flipped. He walked straight into the prosecutor's office, handed over everything he knew, and became the star witness against the very president he had sworn to protect. His testimony was devastating. His evidence was bulletproof. Nixon resigned in absolute disgrace, brought down not by his enemies, but by the man he had trusted most with his darkest secrets. But if Nixon's betrayal was brutal, what happened to Ronald Reagan was somehow even more embarrassing. In the mid-1980s, Reagan's own cabinet members, the people he had personally appointed, went completely rogue behind his back. Senior officials secretly sold weapons to Iran, an American enemy, and then illegally funneled the money to rebels in Nicaragua. All of this happened while Reagan was president, in his own White House, without his knowledge, or so he claimed. The Iran-Contra scandal didn't just embarrass Reagan internationally. It raised a question that was somehow more terrifying than the scandal itself. Was the president actually in charge of his own administration? The men he hired, trusted, and empowered had either gone rogue or kept him deliberately in the dark. Either answer was devastating. And just when you think betrayal couldn't get more personal than your own lawyer flipping on you. The next story involves a president whose own intelligence agency, the organization created to protect American interests, began working against the very man sitting. But perhaps the most chilling betrayal of all didn't come from a lawyer, a cabinet member, or a rogue agency. It came from a man John F. Kennedy had personally inherited, Allen Dulles, the director of the Central Intelligence Agency. Kennedy had barely been in office 3 months when the CIA handed him the Bay of Pigs, a disastrously planned invasion of Cuba that had been designed, plotted, and prepared before Kennedy even sat down in the Oval Office for the first time. The plan was supposed to be simple: train Cuban exiles, send them in, overthrow Fidel Castro, and celebrate. Instead, it collapsed spectacularly. Over 1,200 American-trained soldiers were captured within days. The operation was exposed globally. Kennedy stood in front of the entire world and had to take responsibility for a plan he had barely understood and never truly approved. He was humiliated, internationally, publicly, completely. And he knew exactly who had handed him that catastrophe with a straight face and a briefing folder. In a fury that shocked even his closest advisors, Kennedy fired Allen Dulles and privately told his inner circle something that sent chills through Washington. He wanted to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the winds. Powerful words from a sitting president about his own intelligence agency. Months later, Kennedy was dead, assassinated in Dallas, Texas on November 22, 1963. Whether the CIA played any role in what happened that day remains one of the most debated and investigated questions in American history. Classified files, disputed evidence, and unanswered questions have fueled suspicion for over 6 decades. The full truth may never be known, but the bitter irony was impossible to ignore. The agencies, the advisors, the lawyers, and the institutions that were specifically built to serve and protect the president had each, in their own way, become the very things these presidents feared most. These moments reveal an uncomfortable truth about power in America. The greatest threat to a president has never been the enemy hiding across the ocean, building weapons, or plotting invasions. It has always been the enemy sitting across the hallway. The ones with a key to the building, a seat at the table, a hand extended in friendship, and a knife hidden behind their back. Because in the end, it was never the strangers that broke them. It was always the people they let in. I hope you liked the video. Stay connected for more interesting facts and stories. Till then, subscribe, like, and share.